I'm going to be kind of invoking a little bit of my father today. And my father, along with his father, liked to make words. My father made a few different words. One was the word schismogenesis, which is a nice big chunky mouthful. He also coined the term double bind and talked about transcontextual process. And there were several. And his father before him coined the term genetics. So I kind of figure that that gives me permission to make up new words. I don't know if I'm right about that, but it's okay to make up new words, especially when you come to a place where there's no way to describe the thing you're talking about. And this is a really interesting problem with language, right? So what is authorized by language in terms of what concepts can be actually validated and in fact valued by the society and the community. So I've been working with this thing that I call warm data for about 10 years now. And the concept of warm data is that it's transcontextual information. So it's information that is moving between the different contexts of our daily lives. I'll give you an example. So my mother's 92, and when she was little, the doctor would come to her house. And when the doctor came in her house, the doctor could actually see, is it warm in here? No, it's actually freezing. Is there food? Is it clean? Is there love? Is there humor? There's a lot of other information besides those details that provided the facts of whatever malady she happened to have, a rash, a flu, whatever. So that when the doctor responded to that, even though that information wasn't on the clipboard, it was actually in the doctor. And it happened in the communication. It was implicit. It was unseen. It was there. It was absolutely there. But it wasn't there in terms of what you could look back and find in the transcript. So I've been working with this for quite a while. And one of the things that has come up is that I find that these groups that I'm working with have these profound shifts, but I can't actually say what they are. And it seems that for each person, whatever is taking place is very personal. And they may leave the session and they might go quit smoking, or they might get in touch with a friend they haven't talked to in 12 years, or they might, quit their job, or they might see something in their job that's possible that they never saw before. But all of these shifts are produced in a way that I couldn't quite describe, which is really not very convenient when you're trying to write grant proposals or explain to people why what you're doing is worth doing, especially in the conditions of life that we live in now, where there's a kind of urgency toward change that's pushing for very explicit, predetermined, deliverable goals. And what I am actually witnessing is a kind of deep shift of premises that then shifts everything. So I think to myself, this is interesting. What do we call this? And around that same time, I got a call from my daughter, leave it to your kids. And she said, Mom, it's just that all the problems we're dealing with in the world right now are insidious. And, it came up last night. Siva was talking about the insidiousness of the Facebook problem. And this was an unlocker for me of what does it mean for something to be insidious? So I looked it up and I started to explore. And it turns out that insidious is defined, and I think this is from the Oxford on the internet, not the original, but that there's proceeding in a gradual, subtle way, but with very harmful effects. In other words, there's something that's gathering, combining in an unseen way that's leading to danger. Okay, so we talk about things being insidious, like racism is insidious. Corruption is insidious. Addictions are insidious. Cancer can be insidious. There's lots of examples of things that are insidious. But what would the opposite of that be? Because in some ways, this pattern of how things are combining in gradual, unseen ways is a really important piece. And in fact, life is actually happening in that way. So what would it look like if we had a word that was talking about this gradual, unseen coalescence, but it was pointing more toward vitality than toward the danger of insidiousness? Now, just to be very clear, I'm pretty sure that in my thinking here, this Aphanipoiesis word could be a way to describe this. Now, making a new word is fun. First thing I had to do, of course, was start contacting Lance. So Lance is in on this. And we were playing around with various Greek roots and which way do you put them and how does it work, and, trying to figure it out. And we kept bumping into these questions like, is it invisible? Is it hidden? What is it? What are we trying to say? And finally, I came across this root, aphanis, in Greek, which means unseen, and poiesis, which you're probably familiar with from autopoiesis, among other things, which is becoming. And so a possible definition of aphanipoiesis could be an unseen coalescence toward vitality. But you got to be careful with this, because is the unseen coalescence that what's happening, or are things coalescing and becoming unseen? And I think both of those things are taking place. I'll explain that more in a moment. But back to the word, because a word's not a word till you can taste it. We see this root aphanis in words like fantasy, in phantom, in diaphanous. That's a beautiful word, and of course poiesis from Maturana and Varela's work. And so somehow what we're talking about is that it's possible to have a kind of diaphanous poetry be a prerequisite of vitality. So that makes me feel good. I like that idea that there's diaphanous poetry is necessary. An unseen coalescence toward vitality, or a coalescence of experience becoming unseen. So there are things that we experience, and we have seen them. We were there. I got on the bus. I didn't have the money. The bus driver let me get on anyway. And then later on, I had an experience and I crossed the street because I wanted to ask the policeman what time it was or how to get directions. I go to the pharmacy and I buy Band-Aids, and they're the same color as my skin. What I haven't noticed is the way in which those experiences are coalescing into a way of seeing myself in the world. And I might then say, no, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I know I'm not racist. But I have these unseen coalescent experiences. And they form premises that I'm not aware of, but are part of who I am accidentally. And so this is why we have to be careful with, are they seen or unseen? So some things I think we see and then we don't see them later on. The reason that I'm really interested in this is because it's, for me, coming to a question of really, how do we make change? Like, where is the change? There's a lot of people out there doing diligent work, trying desperately in various NGOs to create change in a world. And, we've been actually watching this for 50 years now, and it's not actually changing anything. So where is the change? So this is, for me, here's a quote from my dad. I told you I was going to invoke him, but my question is, does evolution require something like a process of aphanipoiesis? Is there a necessary zone of the unseen that would allow for the possibility of evolution? So my dad says, I was laying down a very elementary ideas about epistemology, that is about how we can know anything. In the pronoun we, I of course included the starfish and the redwood forest, the segmenting egg and the Senate of the United States. Okay. And in the anything, which these creatures variously know, I included how to grow a 5-way symmetry, how to survive a forest fire, how to grow and still stay the same shape, how to learn, how to write a constitution, how to invent drive a car, how to count to 7. Above all, I included how to evolve, because it seemed to me that both evolution and learning must fit the same formal regularities or so-called laws. How does an organism know how to evolve? Okay, so there must be some sort of process that requires that it be unseen. Otherwise, what you would have is the organism continuing to do what it does with its familiarness. Okay, the earthworm keeps earthworming and the redwood tree keeps redwood treeing, and there wouldn't be change. So those familiar processes, those familiar interactions and communications become a kind of lock, right? But in order to actually have evolution, things have to stay the same enough to stay alive, but they have to keep changing, because if they don't change, they die. So where's the shift? How do you tend to that kind of change? So for me, what became clear is that this is an exploration of transcontextual process. This picture is just here to keep you entertained. And transcontextual is a beautiful word that my father used to describe the ways in which living systems occupy multiple contexts simultaneously. And that when you say something, the greeting of a friend it's not just the greeting of a friend. Whatever it is that's happening, it's not just that and nothing more. It could be the beginning of autumn. It could be that you haven't talked to that person in 10 years. It could be all sorts of things, right? So there's all kinds of contextual things happening in every interaction. And that to begin to play into that, I have been looking at the work of Charles Sanders Peirce and then my dad around abductive process. And Charles Sanders Peirce and my dad described abductive process a little bit differently, but I think in ways that are very compatible, especially in this study of Aphanipoiesis. And Peirce talked about it in terms of the sort of the generation of a hypothesis. And so that you would have a understanding of knowledge in one context, and that would give you something to hypothesize into a new context with, right? You hear a piece of music for the first time, you've never heard it before, but you have heard music, so you take what you know and you plant it and you pull from that. My father described abductive process a little differently. He talked about it in terms of how one context actually becomes a description of another. So in Aphanipoiesis, what you have happening here is that there is a question of what are those conditions, those prerequisites, those presuppositions that are what has submerged, that gives rise to the possible hypothesis. What is it possible to hypothesize is the question. What has submerged? Because by the time things have already emerged, there's been lots of submergence. The Aphanipoiesis has been taking place for a long time. So getting to this question of how things are changing, how does an organism actually know how to evolve, and recognizing that there is a very important realm of that which is unseen. So for me, this is exciting because it's the first time that I've actually been able to make a case for why it's important to have conversations that have unseen results, that there are actually changes taking place that are not seeable, and they shouldn't be seeable. There's no need to extract them, measure them, describe them. Let those things keep coalescing, let them keep shifting. I think my time is up, so I'll stop there, but thank you very much.